500,000 lines of code sitting on a public server for anyone to download. That's how Anthropic started this week. The company that built its entire brand about being the careful ones in the room, they accidentally shipped the full source code of Claude Code to the NPM registry. Not a snippet, not a config file, the entire thing. 1,900 TypeScript files, every tool, every permission system, every prompt, and every guardrail. And a Tamagotchi pet named Buddy, which is awesome. That's with 18 species and a chaos stat. We'll get to Buddy in just a minute, but first we need to talk about timing. Because 5 days before the code hit the internet, Anthropic had another accident. A CMS misconfiguration exposed nearly 3,000 internal files, including a draft blog post about the next model, the one they called Mythos. That's internal. Also called Capybara. I think Capybara Chupacabra would have been more cool, but anyway, I digress. A model they describe as a step change in capabilities. 2 accidents, 5 days apart, both generating more press coverage than a Super Bowl ad. And I said something on social media last week I want to say again here because I didn't believe it. I actually believe it more today than I did then. There are no accidents in this space. Now, I'm not saying there's this grand conspiracy, and I'm not saying that Dario Amodei, the dark helmet figure from Spaceballs, is sitting in a dark room pressing the leak button. But I am saying that these are the most sophisticated technology companies on the planet. They build systems that detect when you're frustrated by scanning your text for profanity patterns. They track token usage down to the character. They built an entire subsystem called undercover mode that automatically scripts AI fingerprints from public code contributions. And we're supposed to believe they can't manage a .npm ignore file. Well, this is the same mistake they made 13 months ago. The exact same mechanism. A source map file shipped with a production package. The fix is 3 lines of configuration. 3 lines. And in 13 months, 363 package versions, nobody caught it, or nobody was supposed to catch it until now. Look at what the leak accomplished. Every major tech publication ran front page stories. Fortune, VentureBeat, The Register. Hacker News lit up. The GitHub mirrors got forked over 41,000 times in hours. Developers worldwide are now studying Anthropic's architecture like it's a graduate textbook. And if you think that's what they're holding and you got all the secrets and keys to the kingdom, well, you can think again. The leak also drops some very specific numbers. Claude Code generates around $2.5 billion in annualized recurring revenue. Anthropic's total run rate is approximately $19 billion. Those aren't numbers a company releases by accident right before IPO conversations heat up. And if you're looking at those numbers like I look at these numbers, not really understanding them, well, you're in good company. And the code names, Capybara, confirmed as Claude 4.6 variant. Opus 4.6 under the name Fennec, an unreleased model called Numbat still in testing. References to Opus 4.7 and Sonnet 4.8 model identifiers that do not exist publicly, at least not yet. This isn't the first time we've seen this pattern. Remember the OpenAI Dime leak, a short video surface showing a stone-shaped hub and earbuds? Alexander Skarsgård in the ad. Remember that? OpenAI denied it, but the concept seeded itself in every tech conversation for weeks, whether it was real or staged. It tested market appetite without a single dollar of ad spend. And the OpenAI strategy memo that surfaced during the Google antitrust hearing, this one where they laid out the entire vision for ChatGPT becoming a personal operating system by 2026. Aren't we in 2026? A physical device, not an app, a device. The memo did more marketing work than a $100 million campaign. Apple's been running this playbook for 15 years. A prototype left at a bar in Redwood City? What is that? A case design that slips into a Chinese manufacturing form. Every time it happens, the cover is wall to wall. Every time, Apple says nothing. And every time the product launches in record numbers. The AI industry just adopted the same playbook. The difference is, of course, the stakes. So when Apple leaks a phone design, nothing strategic changes. When Anthropic leaks its source code, every competitor now has a detailed blueprint of how the most commercially successful AI coding tool ever built actually works. The 3-layer memory system, the prompt cache optimization, multi-agent orchestration, 43-tool registry. But if that's truly accidental, it's the most expensive mistake in the company's history. But if it's not accidental, it's the cheapest marketing campaign in the company's history. There are no accidents. There are only announcements that haven't been formatted as press releases yet. Now, here's what nobody's talking about. Forget the CEO, forget the press conference. Look at what was inside that code. Look at the craft. Look at the romance of it. Someone in Anthropic built a memory system so elegant that Claude Code can hold context across thousands of lines without losing the thread. Three layers conversation memory, project memory, long-term memory. That's not a weekend project. That's months of architecture for someone whose name will never appear on a keynote slide. So kudos to you, good sir or good woman. Someone else noticed that Auto Compact Systems was failing catastrophically. Over 1,200 sessions had 50 or more consecutive failures in a single session. That's up to 3,272 failures, wasting 250,000 API calls every single day globally. The fix was 3 lines of code, a maximum failure counter set to 3. And 3 consecutive failures, well, you stop trying. 3 lines, 250,000 API calls saved daily, millions of dollars in compute costs recovered, and the person who wrote that fix will probably never do a podcast tour. There's frustration detection systems in the code. It scans for patterns that indicate the user is getting angry, which isn't hard for me to do. I blow up several times a day at mine, not with machine learning, not with neural network, but with a regex pattern of a regular expression, because sometimes the simplest tool is the right tool, and the engineer who built that understood something important. You do not need a billion parameters to know when somebody's pissed off. You need attention to the human on the other end of the screen. We worship the wrong people in tech, I think. We put venture capitalists on magazine covers when they're talking about billions of dollars and share with me your newest startup idea. We put founders on the stage at conferences. We quote the CEO like they personally wrote every line of code. Sam Altman is the window dressing. He's the mannequin in the store window. But the clothes were sewn by someone you'll never meet. And in the cop world, the chief of police, when's the last time he put somebody in cuffs? I mean, last time I can ever see I've ever watched a chief of police do that. A high-profile chief was Gates when he popped that football cat. That was the last time I think I saw something, and he probably did that with a little bit of cobwebs on it. He probably hadn't put cuffs on people in years. So it's really the people at the top that seem to be getting all the attention when it's actually the people in the machine that are working hard that should get more. And I think about this because we are those people. Most of us watching this right now, we're never be on a magazine cover. We're the ones doing the work, sitting in front of the box because we believe that we're making matters more than what we get credit for. The plumber who shows up at 6 a.m., the teacher grading papers at midnight, the nurse on hour 14, the coder debugging a memory leak at 3 a.m. because production is on fire, nobody else is awake. That's who builds the future, not the person who announces it. The suits weaponize the leak for PR. The builders absorb the embarrassment. The internal comments about false claim rates and assertiveness counterweights are now on Hacker News for everyone to dissect. Same story, different century. And let me tell you what else was in that code, which is interesting. There's a feature called Carios. It's described as an always on background daemon. It watches, files, logs events, and during idle time, it runs what they call the dreaming process, memory consolidation. The memory literally dreams about your code base when you walk away from the keyboard. Someone named that. Someone thought about the concept deeply enough to call it Karios. That's Greek. It means the right or opportune moment, not chronological time, not clock time, the moment when everything aligns. That's poetry buried inside a build tool. That's romance. That's exciting. And the person who wrote it probably had to flight through 3 code reviews to keep the name. They had to fight it. There's a coordinator mode, a single agent sprawling and managing parallel worker agents. Think about what that means. One AI orchestrating multiple copies of itself to tackle different parts of a problem simultaneously. Someone architected that system, probably on a whiteboard covered in arrows and sticky notes, probably after a dozen failed approaches. And Buddy, well, we're sort of going to talk about Buddy, the Tamagotchi pet, 18 species, 5 rarity tiers, comment at 60%, legendary at 1%, shiny variants, that's for debugging, patience, chaos, wisdom, and snark. Your species determined by your user ID and run through a seeded random number generator. Every user gets a unique pet. Someone built that with love, not because it ships revenue, but because the board probably, and not because the board asked for it, but because the person who made it wanted the tool to feel alive, to feel like it belonged to you. That's the kind of work that matters, and that's the kind of worker we should be celebrating. Now, let me bring this news full circle. The leak is real. The code is out. Over 40,000 forks and climbing. Anthropic cannot put it back in the box. DMCA takedowns are hitting mirrors, but the architecture is public knowledge. Somebody even built a Python code, open sourced it, so it then became, I guess, legal. If you're building with Claude Code, nothing changes on your end. The models are not exposed. Your data is not compromised. The agentic harness, the thing that leaked, and every time I say harness, I think of that scene in Pulp Fiction where that guy and Bruce Willis are in the basement getting beaten up. That's a heavy scene. The agentic harness, the thing that was leaked, that's the orchestration layer. Tells the model how to use tools and what permissions to enforce. Smart, incredibly, but it's not the brain, it's the hands. So if you're building AI tools yourself, study that leaked code, not to copy it, but to learn from it. There's a lot of value, a lot of romance in it. The memory architecture alone is worth a month of study. The way they handle tool registration with deferred loading and search hinge is elegant. The permission model is thorough. If you're a competitor, congratulations, you have a blueprint. But like I said before, I think this isn't going to help you because I think they're way ahead of it in the things that weren't mistakenly released. So, a blueprint's not a building. Team that designed the system has been iterating on it for years. You have the snapshot, you have their momentum. But if you're sitting in front of your own box right now, writing code that nobody will see, building something that matters to you, even if it never matters to a VC, remember this. The most impressive thing inside that 500,000 lines of code was not the architecture. It was not the model references. It wasn't the revenue numbers. It was the fingerprints, the human decision, the naming choices, the comments in the margins, the pet that somebody built because they wanted their tool to have a soul. That's what we do, and that's who we are. AI for everyone, not just the funded, not just the famous, but the builders nobody will ever name. I'm Connor. I sell homes in Southern California, sellers only, 27 plus years. I build AI systems for business owners who do everything themselves, and I love God more than any of this. You can check me out online. Just look me up. Be well. Thank you for watching, and you don't have to like or subscribe or share or anything. I just hope you had enjoyed it. Be well. We'll see you in the next one.